Hey folks, welcome back to Only the Best Fantasy Novels. My name is Robin, and today I'm excited to talk to you about The Reckoning of Roku, which is the first of the duology that's going to feature Avatar Roku, and it's the fifth in the Chronicles of the Avatar series. That, which is basically just a series of books that are separated into duologies, and they give us adventures in the lives from the lives of previous avatars before Avatar and of Last Airbender fame. Anyway, so what is The Reckoning of Roku about? It essentially picks up immediately after Roku leaves the Fire Nation and goes to the Southern Air Temple to begin his training in airbending. As we all know, the avatars all have an element that is basically the opposite of their personality. It's an element that they always have a challenge to learn, and for Roku, it turns out that his element is going to be airbending. That's going to be the unique challenge for him. So he's there, he's learning, and in the meanwhile, there's things afoot happening in the background. We see more of Sozin and his ambition that eventually leads him to start the 100-Year War. And just for the sake of this plot, we see the essentially a lost world kind of story where they go to this island in search of mystical treasure, quote unquote mystical treasure, and they and that's kind of the generic plot that the story follows. I won't get into details because it's pretty fun to read about on your own. But anyway, so like I mentioned, it's set just after Roku starts his training, and whilst undergoing his training, his dedicated airbending master is the Air Nun Master Disha, who in addition to training Roku, she's taken a special interest in a young airbender who he showed great promise, but he after a recent tragedy in his life, he started losing his ability to airbend. A young airbender child named Gyatso. So yeah, we like a big part of the novel is essentially not just focusing on Roku's and Sozin's relationship, but also on the friendship between Roku and Gyatso that we know is gonna last well past Roku's lifetime. But yeah, so what were like the main highlights of this book? First of all, we see more of Roku and Sozin's friendship. Now in the series, spoilers for Avatar: The Last Airbender, by the way, we see when they were kids growing up, they seem to be like best of friends. Sozin was like this really, he seemed like like just like a regular person, but then as time changed and I guess he became the Fire Lord and all of that. He changed. He became much more aggressive. He became imperialistic, expansionist. He essentially started the 100-Year War to make the Fire Nation dominate the world effectively. And we did see that change in his personality as time went by over the course of Roku's flashbacks. This book puts a slightly different spin on it because we get to see their relationship at this very young age in a whole new light. Like yes, Sozin is very much he's the quintessential haughty nobleman. He believes in Fire Nation superiority, in his superiority, and he has this bias of pretty much everyone else being little better than chattel to him. But in addition to this ambitiousness and this streak of ruthlessness that we see in him, we also see he has just this sense of loyalty and deep friendship with Roku, and another character who plays a major role in Roku's life. Now, this kind of helps to lay the groundwork for why Roku's had such a big blind spot at Sozin. Because we also see from Roku's personality at this time that he's not very assertive, he's not very he's not very self-confident, he's not very assertive, and as a result of that he like Sozin was always like the person who would champion him, who would like when they were Agni guys, Sozin would fight for him, these kind of things. Like Sozin was effectively like a big brother to him. So it's why he always had rose-colored glasses towards Sozin, even when the people around him could see these major flaws with Sozin, and he just couldn't accept it. But it is a relationship that's how we see it start over the course of the book, and as the book progresses, we see how it changes for both of them, as not just as Sozin begins to accept the fact that Roku is no longer his friend and is starting to become the Avatar. In the same way, Roku's training is changing his personality, changing his values, his ideas, and his preconceptions of the world. So that was just off of that relationship alone, this book was really cool to read about. But then we have the relationship between Sozin and Gyatso. So it starts off quite passive aggressive because they're essentially two trainees under the same master, and they don't get along very well initially. But Gyatso was pretty fun to read about because he had this very playful streak to him, which we honestly, now that we got a good look at Gyatso in this book, this is where Aang gets it from. Like, Gyatso's basically kind of a clown. Like, he started the whole pie throwing thing that he does. He started it it started just a bit before this book. Like early on, when he throws a pie at someone, the master took a taste of it and said that his recipe still needs work. So it's still early days in that regard. But a lot of the things, a lot of like the traits that Aang has, that in the show Aang displayed, and like a lot of the things that Aang took as like facts of the world, we find out it was really just Gyatso being a clown. Like, for example, Aang's love of riding animals. That's 100% Gyatso. Gyatso tries to ride every new animal he comes across in this book. And then there's the whole Flameo Hot Man scene from from when Aang and Team Avatar were in the were trying to infiltrate like the Fire Nation. It turns out Gyatso invented that on his own, and he was trying to make it become part of the zeitgeist of the Fire Nation, I guess, language at the time. So turns out, yeah, no one in the Fire Nation ever actually used those words. It was all just Gyatso being Gyatso. They're very playful, but at the same time, as much as he was playful, like we see that Gyatso was clearly a very talented airbender, and in this novel, his particular story is that he's lost his ability to airbend following a tragedy that mirrors something similar to what Roku went through before the start of this book, and their shared trauma, they kind of bond over their they kind of bond over it and start to help each other heal, and like that it formed the basis of what's going to be a deep lifelong friendship for Roku, and one that spans multiple lifetimes with Gyatso. So that was like once again just an absolutely stellar character work. Like Randy Ribay, he's the first new author in this franchise, in this series of books. Before we had FCE, and Randy Ribay had really big shoes to fill, because the Kyoshi books and the Yang books are great, but Randy really hit it out of the park. Like, his writing is spectacular. His character work is extremely engaging, because the way he forms these relationships and just deep dives into these characters, like, he is a fan of the show, and he has like a deep respect and he was really able to just put himself in these characters and think, what if, and it's just spectacular to watch. The other main character that we have in this book, outside of Sozin, Roku, and Gyatso, is Malaya, who is a scout in this Lost World kind of plot that we have. She's a scout, a member of the village that's hidden away in this on this island that Roku and everyone eventually congregates at, in an attempt to parse whatever they have to parse. I really don't want to get into spoilers, but she's a scout. She spent her life just learning as much as she can from everyone that she can, and it's led her to really nitpick at the inconsistencies in the culture and the tradition of her world or village, and to start finding issues with things that everyone just accepts as gospel. And the groundwork is basically laid for her to become one of the future members of Team Avatar. So there is that with her story. And it plays out quite interestingly. Like, I don't think of any of the books so far we've had a story play out in the same way that her has. But it really set the stage for this book, like, towards the end. It made things like this book is called The Reckoning of Roku for a reason. Like, Roku really, by the end of this book, Roku really had to face the fact that he had to confront the fact that he didn't want to be the Avatar, and make his bones with it. And everything just kind of came together at the end to add this sense of gravitas and seriousness to that defining moment in his life, basically. So that was really cool. And naturally, like, Roku is the Avatar following Kyoshi, so in many ways, like, Kyoshi is referenced multiple times throughout this book, including the inevitable moment when Roku communicates with Kyoshi. But we find out more about how Kyoshi is just an absolute unit of an Avatar. Like, apparently Kyoshi lives to 230 years. What the hell? How is that even possible? But yeah, Kyoshi apparently lived to 230 years old, and by the end of it, if we thought the Kyoshi that we saw was a beast, apparently she reached next level by the end of her life. And we aren't told how she passes on and how the cycle continues on to Roku. But yeah, like, the lore of this world just deepened more. All in all, a really engaging story. Like, I like the plot isn't like the usual kind of plot. It isn't like this whole it isn't like a very common plot structure that's used, like, or a common plot type, whatever you want to call it. But given that this is essentially Roku's first real challenge as an Avatar, and he kind of had to step in on this island to kind of prevent a conflict between the Fire and the Earth kingdoms. Like, it was great. It was really good. In addition to that, like, this story that plays out in this with the leader of this village, it's a mirror compared to, like, you can see a lot of similarities between that story and how he treats someone else as compared to how he treats Sozin, because he just has this huge blind spot to Sozin, even though they essentially have the same flaws and the same goals and that kind of thing. So it's setting the stage for where we see the story eventually ends in the flashbacks in Avatar: The Last Airbender. All in all, as with all the Avatar books, an absolutely top-notch read, really fun, absolutely worth it. Randy Ribay, like I said, Randy Ribay had big shoes to fill when he stepped into this franchise, and for me, he just absolutely knocked it out of the park. I'm looking forward to the next book in the duology, and I hope he continues on to write other things in this world for us. But yeah, needless to say, if you're a fan of the series, if you've been reading the book so far, you're only going to find more of what you love in this one. And that's all I have to say about The Reckoning of Roku. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.